So the average person, when they close a deal, they pop the champagne bottles, the day of closing or right after closing. And you and I both know that's where the real work begins, especially if you're underfunded.
So even if you are funded, fully funded, and you close, it's like, all right, now we crossed the finish line. Now let's move on to the next one. And I have known people like that who are like always chasing the acquisition, but they're never working on like the business plan or anything. And so if you always are chasing an acquisition, and it is exciting buying properties, you're neglecting everything you bought before. And the guy that I know who used to chase acquisition fees ended up getting foreclosed on like 5 or 6 properties because he
Oof.
wasn't maintaining them. He was going after more and more properties. So, welcome to the Ironclad Underwriting Podcast, where precision meets performance in commercial real estate. I'm your host, Jason Williams, and every week we deep dive into the strategies and systems and stories behind rock solid underwriting. Whether you're a seasoned analyst, an up-and-coming investor, or a commercial real estate professional looking to sharpen your edge, this show is your front row seat to expert insights, emerging trends, and real-world underwriting tactics that stand the test of time and scrutiny. From market assumptions to debt structuring, cap rates to cash flow, we're cutting through the noise and getting to the numbers that matter. So sharpen your pencils and fire up those models. Let's get to work. This is Ironclad Underwriting. Hey, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Ironclad Underwriting Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Williams. I got my co-host, Frank Padlano. How are you doing, Frank?
Good sir, good sir. You gave me a hint on this topic, and I like it. So
Yeah. So a lot of times people look at underwriting and I've actually seen this many times is once an LOI is submitted, they never even open up their underwriting again. But really what happens with a deal is really dictated by like the first 90 days after you close. So let's jump into that. You have anything you want to discuss before we jump in?
I mean, the first 90 days, one of the biggest things that I've seen on many deals is that it's not fully raised at closing. And then they're going to raise, but the longer it is away from the closing day, the harder it is to raise.
The ands, depending on how your PPM is written, you might have a cutoff anyway where you can't raise after a certain time
Yep.
anyway. So that can really hinder you. So if you're like trying to raise and you're like 500,000 short, even though you're able to close, and then your cutoff is there, it's like, all right, now you don't have reserves. Now you can't do some of the capex you're expecting to do. Now you might not be able to take an acquisition fee. You might have to roll that into shares or whatever. So,
Been there, done that.
yep. So really what happens is underwriting, yeah, you do all your underwriting, you do all your projections, everything. It's just numbers in a spreadsheet or numbers in a model. It doesn't have anything to do with how you carry out your plan. So your underwriting always assumes everything is running perfectly, everything is going well, and you hit the ground running, right? But the reality is, if you're changing management companies, you're going to have bitter people because they're about to lose a job. If you have residents and they understand that someone's taken over, they're going to start worrying about, oh no, these people are going to jack up my rents because that's what happened the last time somebody bought the property. And so they might start moving out or looking for something else. Vendors, that's a whole other mess. It's like every time you add a vendor, you have to do your credit check and get on their um, net 30 and net 15 or whatever requirements they do for payments. You have to add them to preferred vendors, and it's a big old headache. And then there's like the whole operations of everything going on. The staff, the new staff trying to learn a new property if you're not retaining the old property management company. With new staff comes a new culture with the on-site staff and the residents, the culture of just the new company altogether. And depending on your experience level for owning a property like this, like you might not even know what's going on or know what to even look for whenever you get a new property. So
I had one property with the property management company quit when we took over. I
so
don't think they fired us. They just fired the building
were
because
you
they didn't
planning
know
on
us.
were you planning on keeping them whenever you took
We were
over?
planning on keeping them. Yeah, it was interesting. Luckily, I flew out there the week after closing, and we interviewed 4 property management companies that next week.
Yeah. And finding a property management company is probably going to be its own episode, just because you can interview, and during an interview you get all the right answers. So it's like they're going to tell you what you want to hear. The truth of it comes down to what actually happens when the rubber meets the road. Do they actually do what they say they're going to do? And then it's like we had one property manager who's a firefighter. And by firefighter, I mean create a fire and then put it out and then looks like the hero, even though it was like detrimental to the property. But hey, at least that fire was put out, you know? So,
That's funny. I've never heard that term, especially used that way. I was just thinking of the concept of like maintenance. There's proactive maintenance and the reactive maintenance, but it sounds like you're talking about something completely different.
and it's a tactic. And I learned this from one of our investors. It's like they're always going to come to a meeting with a new problem, right? They're never going to address any of the previous problems that they brought up before. It's always a new problem. And so they'll come in and say, yeah, we have a water line break. And granted, she can't make a water line break. All right, well, we need to get that going and we need so many bids and blah, blah, blah. But then we're like, oh wait, what about the bug unit we had a month ago? Did that ever get cleaned up? It gets tossed to the wayside because we're all concentrating on the water line. And so it's a deferment tactic. So that's like I said, a whole other episode. So
Yep. So the average person, when they close a deal, they pop the champagne bottles, the day of closing or right after closing. And you and I both know that's where the real work begins, especially if you're underfunded.
even if you are funded, fully funded, and you close, it's like, yeah, it's like, all right, now we crossed the finish line. Now let's move on to the next one. And I have known people like that who are like always chasing the acquisition, but they're never working on like the business plan or anything. And so if you always are chasing an acquisition, and it is exciting buying properties, you're neglecting everything you bought before. And the guy that I know who used to chase acquisition fees ended up getting foreclosed on like 5 or 6 properties because he
Oof.
wasn't maintaining them. He was going after more and more properties. So
In general, I agree with you. I would say that if you have the right team, where you have a certain role, then it's one thing. But overall, I agree with you.
yeah. So yeah, popping the champagne. It it's just a milestone. Really, the you're in it for the long haul, and then as soon as you do your turn, you sell it, and you get everyone their projected returns back. That's when you can really pop the champagne and take a break if you're not already going for the next one, you know. So, but what happens within the first month is from day 0 to day 30 is transitioning management companies. A lot of time that's transitioning software because every company likes their own software, be it
Yep.
Resman or OneSite or AppFolio or whatever. And that could take a couple weeks in itself,
Yep.
just migrating everything over. Um, Vendors disruptions. This we already sort of mentioned it, where you have now the property manager has to go in and get on all the vendors lists, do all the credit checks and everything to get their credit for 30 days or whatever. Um, Sometimes it's a management company, sometimes it's the ownership of the property, depending on the vendor. Um, like I said, tenant confusion. Nobody knows what to do, especially if there's a new software. That means a whole new payment system. That means
Yes.
anyone who signs into the old system is sending their money to the old company and not to you. And so you need to get all that sorted out just so you get all your rents. Now, granted, you are legally due all the rents that are sent to the wrong place, but it's a headache not worth dealing with.
Yeah, I was thinking like leases, new leases, old leases, like you said, processes and procedures. We had one property that we acquired recently, and a tenant had set up a deal to sign a lease with the old property management company, and the closing happened, and he still wanted us to honor that lease and honor those numbers. And at one point, he even threatened to sue us over it. I don't think he ever did. This is going back 3 or 4 months ago now, but just it was very interesting. It's like, buddy, you don't have anything signed. We have, we have no proof, and it wasn't necessarily the best takeover either. So, but basically, there was no signed paperwork. He didn't have a copy. He didn't say that he signed a copy, and we didn't have a copy. So.
Yeah, going through all the leases. Now, the lease audit should have happened during due diligence. You might have had a few changes in the leases from the time going from the lease audit to when you close, just because it could be a couple months and you can get a little bit of turnover. So there might be something different there. Um, but hopefully you have all of those sorted out.
I
One
mean,
thing that could really
I
be a
have a
big
question, but
thing
keep going.
is if the previous owner and management company took cash or money orders and now you don't, that disrupts everybody's lifestyle who used to pay that way. And so,
What's your philosophy? I don't know if you've ever written to the LOI or anything else. What's your philosophy on signing new leases during the time?
generally, what I put in the LOI and then also the PSA is they have to keep maintaining the same, I guess, um, business plan that they have been doing previously. I don't want them going in and changing their criteria. It's like, oh, you don't have three times the rent and salary. Oh, we'll take 1.5 or we'll take 0.75 just to get people into the unit just to boost your vacancy or occupancy numbers. Um, because really, it behooves the owner to carry out the same business plan because there are times when you don't close under contract. And so if you don't close and they just fill all their units with people who don't even make the salary requirement, really they just screwed themselves. And especially if they try to sell again because their numbers have just dropped. So,
Yeah. The delinquency will be high, and then the
yep,
evictions cost money too, and then the turnover costs money too.
yep. Um, Generally, what I have seen, is, and not necessarily from takeover, but when property management companies change, which is pretty much like buying a new property and taking it over, is you'll start finding out how many work orders are actually not been done and what needs to get done. And your residents aren't going to care if or care anything about your business plan. They're going to make sure that their AC works, their water works, their oven works, their roof doesn't leak. So
No bugs.
no bugs. Um, and then after your first month, now you start getting into all right. You've collected rents for a month. You've had a month of expenses and then other income, and so now you get to start seeing what actually happens, where your true delinquency is, what the actual expenses are, and hopefully, this is a time when you can start seeing maybe some operational inefficiencies. So, it's like do you think you have a make ready guy who can get units ready in 3 days, but it's actually taking them 6 or 7 days? That's twice as long as you expected them to do. So what's going on? Is it him or is it the units or what? So could
Or
be
you think you have
both.
a brand new maintenance guy joining a Class C property where there's no maintenance guys, and the morning of he doesn't show up and he decides to move to a different real estate market.
Yeah, that's a whole other staffing issue. um, Deferred maintenance that might start showing up, but again, if you did your due diligence well, hopefully you found a lot of your deferred maintenance beforehand. Bad residents. Um, you'll start seeing the people who come into the office and complain about all their neighbors, or complain about the dogs barking at night, or complain about this or that. Um, you also start, well, after 30 days, you're not going to be able to find a pattern of people paying late, but you might start seeing, all right, these 5 residents paid late. Are they going to pay late next month and the month after that? Or is this just a one time thing? So you can start looking, but you can't really get any trends that way.
I mean, delinquency is automatically going to be higher whenever you purchase a new property.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, delinquency can be seasonal. So depending on when you close a property, can also affect your delinquency. And the reason I say seasonal is like around Christmas time, people are spending more money on Christmas for their kids and they forget about rent, or they think they're going to get a Christmas bonus and it's smaller than they expected or something like that. And so Christmas delinquency happens, whereas in July it might not happen. And if you're looking at like a T12, it's annualized through the whole year. It's like, all right, you're estimating this much delinquency for the year, even though 75% of it happens in like December, New Year time. So you can also see that. With all of that, delinquency increasing, and also people unable to pay rent because it's going to the wrong place through the wrong portal, or they didn't get the money order situated because you don't take money orders or checks or anything. You only do it through the portal, then your delinquency is going to go up. And all that ultimately brings down your NOI, which is, if you've been listening to this podcast, it's the net operating income, which is basically the number that dictates everything about your property. So, all right, now day 60 through 90. Hopefully, you have everything well grounded. All your systems are in place. Hopefully, your team is accustomed to the new property and they're working it very well. So hopefully everything's stabilized and you're off to the races and you're gonna make all your projections, or all the problems that you've experienced so far start to just get compounded because day after day the maintenance man gets worn down after doing make readies and fixing bugs and fixing leaks, and HVAC is breaking. And I mean, they're people too. They get worn out doing the same thing. And if they do fixes that don't actually get fixed, that really brings down your morale. And then they get in trouble. And then that brings down morale. And then when morale's down, it's like doesn't want to do anything. And so bad things can happen from there. So,
The only thing I'll say to that, with the strategy especially, is that sometimes, yes, you can compound problems, but you may find deferred maintenance when you switch seasons. So when you switch from air conditioning to heat, stuff like that.
yeah, definitely seasonal deferred maintenance, especially with pool. If you're buying a property in November, and you inspect the pool and it looks good, and then come April when you turn the pool on to start getting it ready for the summer season, you realize the pump is burnt up, or yeah, it was able to run for 8 hours when you did your due diligence, but then it craps out on the ninth hour or something like that. So lots of things like that happen. But after 90 days, you should start revealing how things are actually being operated. It's the honeymoon period is over, and if things are still not going your way, then you need to start changing things and not taking excuses from the management saying, "Well, we're still new" or whatever. Because 90 days in, you're no longer new. You're 3 months into running this property.
You're not a newborn anymore.
Yep. So things you need to look at constantly are you hitting your rents, or are your rent projections what you're going for, your gross potential rent versus your effective rent, which takes into account all your vacancies, or is your vacancy going down or is it going up? Are you running concessions? Were there concessions from the previous owner that you still have to honor? Hopefully not, but there could be. And are you prioritizing occupancy over quality. So if you're prioritizing occupancy over quality, you get what we were talking about before, where you might get people who don't meet the salary
Requirements.
requirements. You get a fast lease up, but 6 months down the line, you're going to be evicting or cleaning out skipped units, trashed out units, stuff like that. So,
Slightly off topic, but what's your philosophy on if someone comes and pays all 12 months in cash up front?
um, one, I don't think it's ever happened. Two, I mean, I'm not opposed to it so long as, I mean, you're still doing your
Yeah, you're
monthly,
still
like,
checking everything else.
yeah, so you're still going in doing your bug spraying and swapping out air filters and stuff like that. So that way you're at least checking to make sure there's nothing like nefarious going on in the apartment. And because a lot of times people use that as a tactic. Say, I'll pay for the 12 months. Don't ever come into my apartment again. And that's a no go right there. You always have to be able to inspect your property. So if they want to pay 12 months, I mean, I'm fine with that. What about you?
Oh, I didn't want you to ask me the question. Um, I've seen it both ways. It has to do more with how they pass the rest of the checks.
And a lot of times it might be a student who gets it and the parent will come in and pay for the 12 months. They don't want to have to remember to pay another monthly bill. So they'll pay it all up front, but the student is there living there, or someone who needed a cosigner is living there. And so that's one way, I guess, to get around the salary requirement. Another thing, after 90 days, you should start seeing um, delinquencies. You can start seeing your residents who always pay late. If they pay late the first 3 months that you own the property, that's probably more than just coincidence. It's a pattern. Two could be a coincidence. Three is definitely a pattern, and they basically paid late 100% of the time you've owned that property. So that's definitely a pattern. Now, if
So
they
if they're
pay,
paying a late fee, I mean, that's not necessarily a problem sometimes, right? If
it's
it's one
not
or two.
if it's just a late fee, that's I like late fees, but if it's like they're paying, say your rent is 1,000 a month and they pay like 500, and then the next month they pay 1,500, and then to catch up,
Oh yeah, that's just a mess.
yeah. So ideally, the property management software can handle all of that and clean things up, but it is just a mess. So the one big red flag is delinquency trending up the first 60 days and then 90 days, or is it staying pretty stable? Ideally, you want zero delinquency by the end of the month, but that doesn't always happen. So let's see. Now we talked about just like fast lease up getting bad people in. So instead of looking at occupancy, look at collections. So collections will tell you more about the property than just an occupancy number. So if you're making 95 to 100% of the collections you're supposed to be making, you're doing okay. But then that would be like what, 5% delinquency, which is still
Yep.
bad. But maintenance, work orders, are they growing? Are they being taken care of? Do you need to hire new people to take care of it? So you should be able to find out all of this within the first 90 days. So
I mean, the only problem with work orders and work order volume is sometimes the numbers are too low because tenants don't want to say anything. Yeah, I've had
that
that issue happen a few times on different properties.
that does happen, but also during your due diligence, when you've walked every property or every unit, you should at least know of some of the issues. And when you're doing due diligence, you're looking for leaks, you're looking for um, paint or holes in walls, a ceiling that's bubbling from a leak or something. You're looking under toilets, under the sinks. So I mean, during your due diligence inspection, you should hopefully be finding some of those um, items that would be work orders, whether they were or not created. So one thing though is when you first take over a property, you want to fix everybody's problems right away. So you want to tackle every single work order, get them all going within like the first week, just so you can prove to the residents, hey, I'm a good owner, I'm taking care of things. But that's really unreasonable, especially unless you bring in like a huge workforce to do everything all at once.
Yeah, like a
If you're
massive team that's going to do it for 2 weeks. That's rare. That doesn't usually happen.
Yeah, so yeah, trying to do too much too fast, that could cause morale issues with your staff. But you also don't want to move too slow. You don't want to say, well, we didn't raise enough, so we don't have any reserves, and we need $5,000 to make this unit ready because it's going to be rented next Friday.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, how do you take care of that? It's like, well, we just switched over the bank account, and so we're trying to get the money, and then all of a sudden, next Friday comes, that resident's not moved in, and the unit's not even ready for anybody to move in. So then you just prolonged your occupancy troubles and your make ready issues. So if you do keep the management team that was already there, and maybe the seller was selling it because it was just the end of their business plan and not because of a malperforming property, then keeping the management team there is good sometimes. They already know the property, they already know the residents. It's an easier transition for the residents and for really the staff. But then what it also means is you're inheriting all of their culture, their team and everything. And yeah, you might have interviewed them, and again, they gave all the correct answers during the interview, but that could be a good thing or a bad thing. So
I mean, right now we have a situation where we have a property manager on site that is a former property manager for the old company, and she's filling in right now. And I mean, I'm super happy because some of the tenants know her. She lives on the property, everything else. So I think it's going to work out pretty well.
yeah. So I mean, and it could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. Like I said, if they have a lot of bad habits or something, because a lot of times when you know the property really well, you can say, oh well, that's not that important, we'll take care of it in the spring or something like that. That can cause issues. Whereas like a new property manager come in and see this issue, it's like, oh crap, we have to take care of it now.
Immediately.
So then you need to either think of retraining the staff or replacing the staff. So because like we have said many times before, your management team can make or break a deal. So again, some of the things that we've seen, that we've experienced ourselves, mistakes that we've made are moving too fast, trying to take care of everything immediately to prove that you're doing everything right, or moving too slow, and you're not moving fast enough. So you have to kind of weigh both of them, and not overwhelm your staff, and do things in a timely order for your residents.
That's what I've been pretty
And
calm lately.
that's why what?
Try not to overwhelm people, during
Yeah,
the transitions.
yeah. Um, and then ignoring early data. It's like a lot of times your management will say, well, it's too early to tell on this, or it's too early to tell on that. It's like, it doesn't matter if it's too early to tell. We still have a number that we need to be tracking. And then whenever we track it and it's an outlier, then we can say, yeah, it was a little bit too early to tell, but we're still tracking it to make sure that it's not repetitive and we are taking care of it. So, and like I said before, problems in month one become trends by month three. So anything else on the first 90 days?
I mean, obviously, if you're under market on rents and you underwrote and purchased that you're going to raise rents, you do have to try to make sure that you're raising the rents, because if not, you're already starting to fall behind. Especially if you didn't fully raise and you need the rents to do the capex.
Yeah, and that's another thing that I didn't even mention is a lot, and it's a big red flag for me whenever I look at someone's underwriting, is they increase rents and they're expecting that to happen day one. It's like that can't happen day one. It's going to happen over a transition period
Yep.
based on the lease schedule of your residence. So if someone signs a lease right before you purchase it, you have 12 months to wait before you can increase their rents again. So that right there is going to affect your income. So,
Sounds good.
oh, yep. So if you have any other tips and tricks on what to do within the first 90 days, or if you want to find out more, you can look me up at ironcladunderwriting.com. You can look Frank up on Instagram, and where else are you? LinkedIn, Facebook.
Facebook, yeah, LinkedIn too.
Yeah. Um, yeah. And if you want more of this, keep listening. You can drop a review and like and share and all that, just so I can get out there more. And we'll catch you next time. Bye. And that's a wrap for this episode of the Ironclad Underwriting Podcast. If you got value from today's conversation, make sure to subscribe, rate, and share the show. And don't forget to connect with us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, or check us out at our website at ironcladunderwriting.com for more insights and updates. If you have a question, a deal you're analyzing, or a topic you want us to tackle, shoot us a message. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep your assumptions grounded, your models sharp, and your underwriting ironclad.